All right, we're live. What's up, everybody? Charlie Marlow here on the Kenny Wallace YouTube channel with some huge breaking news. Already have some people there waiting in the comments. I'm going to go right to X and Adam Stern, who does a great job covering motorsports and fighting also. He's a motorsports and fighting reporter for the Sports Business Journal. And we'll go right to his X feed. About 45 minutes ago, he tweets, NASCAR in a new court filing tonight has called for an order, quote, directing the parties to participate in a judicial settlement conference to be convened by the court and appointing a judicial officer, such as the magistrate judge, to preside over the settlement conference, end quote. That was 45 minutes ago. 40 minutes ago, it's 7:42 here, Central Time. I was actually at the gym. I was driving back from the gym and saw this on Twitter. Huge news. Adam Stern also tweets out 40 minutes ago, NASCAR has called for a settlement. Quote, following the hearing, one of 23XI's owners stated, quote, we've always been open to a settlement, always have been, end quote. This is an area where the parties are actually in full agreement. NASCAR would also like to resolve this case prior to trial. Remember, there's a trial that's supposed to go down after the season starting December 1st. This has been a big back and forth going back to October of 2024. Lots of peaks and valleys, ebbs and flows. Early on, it looked like the teams had all the momentum. They got that injunction to race as chartered teams here in 2025, basically until the lawsuit was going to go down in December. And then the last several months, it seemed like a lot of the momentum was going towards NASCAR, at least in terms of that injunction for the 2025 season. But I thought it was very interesting, and it's not like I'm the only one, but last week, the fact that all of those team owners came out with those declarations where it was obvious, not just obvious, they said it flat out in those declarations that NASCAR asked them to do that. So we're talking about Joe Gibbs, Rick Hendrick. I mean, most of the owners, obviously 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports are involved in the lawsuit. But when you just look at any type of fight, any type of legal proceeding, any type of legal anything, you're kind of looking at who has the momentum, who has the leverage. And it was pretty obvious when that happened that the leverage was pointing towards 23XI and Front Row Motorsports. If NASCAR felt like it was in a good spot there, I don't think they asked all those teams to do those declarations a week ago. So that's where in the last couple months, that was the first time I really kind of thought, whoa, so maybe NASCAR is in a vulnerable spot. And here we are just a week later, we're right in the middle of the playoffs. But a lot of this news for the lawsuit happens midweek. And it surely looks like, reported by Adam Stern, that NASCAR has called for a settlement. They don't want to see this thing go to trial. I think most people have thought all along that this is, even if NASCAR wins, I always make that joke about white men can't jump, the Rosie Perez line. Sometimes when you win, you really lose. I've always thought that NASCAR was kind of in a no-win spot when it comes to this lawsuit. So we'll see if there's a settlement. Obviously, now all of the power and leverage are in the corner of Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, 23XI Racing, and Front Row Motorsports, because clearly NASCAR is now saying, look, we're open to settling. We don't think our case is as strong as we thought it was. Clearly, when you go to settle, and I've covered a lot of sports legal cases. I'll tell you, how about the Rams settlement? The Rams were sued by the city of St. Louis, and they didn't want to go to trial. The NFL and the Rams did not want to go to trial, and they ended up settling for something like, I think it was $800-900 million. And look, if that goes to trial, maybe the NFL, maybe the Rams win, but a lot's going to come out in discovery, a lot of emails and a lot of things that make a lot of people look really, really bad. And so the NFL and the Rams basically said, look, it's worth it to cut this check to St. Louis for whatever that number was, 850, maybe it was 750. I can't remember the exact number. I'll look it up. But it was a ton of money, knowing the Rams and the NFL, there was a very good chance they could lose that lawsuit. So NASCAR, they're smart. They're in a similar spot where they're like, hey, maybe we go to trial and maybe we win. But if it's 50-50 or worse, then settlement is probably best, not only financially, but also for just the health of the sport. I've thought all along, I've always thought that the teams probably were on the right side of this, just in terms of looking at labor issues in the past with all sports. Labor issues hit every single sport, and it hits NASCAR here. And usually the sanctioning body, the league, has to budge a little bit. And it looks like, look, when NASCAR has called for a settlement, they know they're in a vulnerable spot. So that's the news right there from Adam Stern. I'll go to some other of the reporters. We'll see. I know Bob Pockrass also tweeted something similar. We'll go to Bob's X feed, see if there's any new information in the last 5-10 minutes since I've started this live stream. Thank you for joining me, by the way. So Bob Pockrass, Fox Sports, obviously does a great job. I saw Bob at St. Louis, talked to him for a second at the St. Louis race 3 or so weeks ago, and Bob tweets out 38 minutes ago, NASCAR has asked the court to order a settlement conference mediated by a magistrate judge or other judicial officer. 2311 Front Row Motorsports want to continue using Mediator. Former NBA Chief Legal Officer Jeffrey Mishkin, who already has presided over mediations and settlement talks in the case. Obviously, Michael Jordan probably has some pretty good ties with the former NBA Chief Legal Officer Jeffrey Mishkin. So there you go. I was looking earlier to see if any of the other reporters that do a great job, like Jeff Gluck, Jordan Bianchi, if they had anything else to add. I'll check Jeff Gluck right here. Nothing from Jeff Gluck. Matt Weaver, who contributes to our YouTube channel, also has been all over this legal issue as well. So Matt Weaver is not on this yet. I'm sure he will be soon. This is just a huge day. Obviously, it's Monday too. So if you're traveling, if you're going to the race, you might be going home, and everybody's still talking about the Roval and race manipulation and all that. But huge news with the NASCAR lawsuit. So we got 438 of you now watching live on the Kenny Wallace YouTube channel. I appreciate that. I know, I'm sorry, you're probably disappointed. It's not Kenny, it's Charlie. But look, Kenny, I'm sure he's going to be all over this, whether it's later tonight, probably tomorrow for Coffee with Kenny. So let's go to your comments. Wow, a ton of you. We got Stephen Carter, the Herminator, nailed it again. And we got Alan Charlie says, of course they are. They don't want their crap exposed, talking about NASCAR wanting to settle. Let's see. Liam Channel says, oh, ha, ha, ha. I'm curious, you guys, were you kind of pro NASCAR when it comes to this lawsuit? Were you pro teams? I don't want to say I didn't have a dog in the fight. I just always felt like, and this is coming from somebody who, not a diehard NASCAR fan or reporter, but really followed the sport the last 4 years. And I base my opinion more on the fact of just hearing from all of the owners, right? And look, you can read those declarations from last week. They felt kind of forced. Denny Hamlin even said, look, he thought those declarations actually helped their side. Joe Gibbs in his declaration said he didn't want to be a witness. He wanted to see a settlement. Richard Childress said in his declaration that he wanted permanent charters. I think another one of the owners said that. Rick Hendrick had a really long declaration talking about his friendship with the France family. But it was also obvious if you go back 12, 14 months, whatever it was, to, I guess it was 12 months, to last October when this first came out. If you remember, Rick Hendrick, when asked about this, after 2311 in Front Row Motorsports didn't sign the charter agreement, when asked, Rick Hendrick, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, I was just tired. I had to sign it. All these owners also cited the fact that they have all these employees, hundreds of employees that depend on the teams going for, food on their table. And Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress and Joe Gibbs Racing want to take care of their employees, Roger Penske, all these guys. But again, a lot of these guys, it seemed like the owners were okay and actually felt good, even if they didn't say it. I think the owners liked the fact that Michael Jordan 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports were fighting for them. We had on the channel here, Johnny Roberts interviewed Justin Marks just within the last month or so. Justin Marks, obviously the owner of Trackhouse Racing, and he said something along the lines of, you shouldn't feel scared. You shouldn't feel financially scared when you're in a billion-dollar industry like NASCAR. So what I'm saying is, look, these are some of the best, most successful business owners in America. Rick Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, Roger Penske. They all seemed aligned going back 12 months or so. Even the declarations where NASCAR asked them to sign those declarations, it wasn't an overwhelming great statement in favor of NASCAR. It was more like, we really want to see a settlement. We really don't want to see this thing go to trial. We don't want to see our teams devalued. We don't want to see the sport devalued. That's how I read it a week or so ago when those declarations came out. And here we are less than a week later, and NASCAR is now pushing for a settlement. Liam Channel says NASCAR would lose. I think there's a very good chance of that. Liam Channel says NASCAR is manipulative. Liam is clearly pro teams here. Cody Legger says, NASCAR wants a settlement. No, NASCAR wants them to acknowledge and sign the current contract. Well, if NASCAR is looking to settle, they're going to budge off that current contract. If you're going to settle before a lawsuit, I mean, I promise you guys, come on now. 2311 in Front Row, when they have all the leverage here, they're not signing that original agreement. They're going to get something else. The teams are going to get something else before they agree to settle. Yeah, Rick and Shorty's Adventures, they wouldn't be wanting to settle if they didn't think they had a losing chance. I also think it comes down to percentages, right? It's what percentage you think you could lose. Look, I'm not saying NASCAR would 100% lose if it goes to trial in December. And by the way, it could still go to trial in December, but you're $1 billion business. You're looking at this from a risk assessment, risk management strategy. And if NASCAR says, if they say, man, we only think we have a 25% chance of winning this case, maybe if it's even a coin flip, and they feel like they would be better off for the health of the sport and financially if they were to settle. I also just think there's a goodwill. There's a goodwill, even though it was down and dirty. Remember a couple months ago, some of those texts and emails that came out were straight up nasty. Everybody calling everybody everything. And look, it's good if you make NASCAR content. It's sexy, it's spicy, but that's not good for the health of the sport. NASCAR knows, even the teams know, that avoiding a trial where all that discovery comes out, where all kinds of more nasty texts, emails, conversations come out, it's not good for the sport. So I always thought the teams were going to get a little something here, whether it was a settlement, whether it was in a trial. But I think this is good for the sport. I think even the teams would agree. If they feel like they get a fair deal and they don't have to go to trial and basically everybody can move on and kumbaya, that's the best foot forward. And that's what all those owners said basically in that declaration last week. Again, I don't think that was a ringing endorsement for NASCAR. It was more like, folks, let's get to the table. Let's settle this thing for the good of the sport, for our businesses, and the future of this great auto motorsports industry. Okay, David Van Brunt says they don't want to open the books. There you go. That's another point. That's probably very true. Nicholas says, okay, what happened this time? I read it earlier. Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal reporting that NASCAR would like to settle this lawsuit, basically. Let's see. Jim Hubler says, Kenny makes so much money off of YouTube. He doesn't even host the show anymore. Go pound sand, Herm. I'm out. Come on, Jim. Herm's on here all the time, by the way. We did a video from Herm earlier. He was traveling, by the way. He's in Charlotte. He's back in St. Louis now. He did the Happy Harvick podcast. I can't wait to listen to that. Herm works 24/7, 365, baby, okay? I saw this news. I didn't feel like bothering him and being like, hey, let's go live. I said, I'll just jump on. And I'm sure Herm is going to weigh in. I could look right now. Maybe he's already weighed in. Let me check X real quick. Let me check X for you. See if Herm has weighed in on the latest development. I saw this earlier. He does have a craft show update for Kim's Craft Show, Saturday, November 8th, 9 a.m. Central Time. How about that? Kim is very good with the crafts, with the wreaths and all that. Okay. Liam Channel says MJ took on the NBA and won. Hit that like button, kids, from Blake Olt. Poor Jim, talking Jim France. It's past Kenny's bedtime. Like I said, he's been traveling. Let's see. JS, he's defending us. Jim Hubler, it's always been Kenny or Charlie. Go on and on. They will sleep fine tonight. I think Jim was having fun. JS, thank you for defending us. But yeah, Kenny and I, we started this channel about 3.5, 4 years ago. We've been doing it as a team the whole time. Thank you guys for watching, by the way. 592 of you watching live. Appreciate that. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not already. Let's see. Stephen Carter said, Herminator called it. Don't blow up your house. Right. That's what the judge said. Remember, the judge basically said, I've never seen two parties that were so willing to burn their own house down. And the judge also said, look, whether it's NASCAR or the teams, if you feel like you're going to win this trial, you got another thing coming in terms of NASCAR. Don't be coming into this thinking you're going to win. Teams, don't be coming into this thinking you're going to win. Like, this is going to be a dogfight. The judge basically said all along it was in the best interest of both parties to settle. Rick and Shorty's adventures. They don't want to open the books and lose. The bully just blinked, talking about NASCAR. Rick and Shorty's adventures. Michael Jordan's a smart and powerful man. NASCAR is smart too, though. And look, they know it's probably in their best interest to settle. NASCAR's not stupid. If they thought they had an open and shut case, they'd go to trial, even if it meant that there'd be some uncomfortable things in a trial in December. But look, again, you're assessing risk here. Jeffy says, it would be okay with me if the teams leave and start their own league. Don't you want NASCAR to keep going, though? In the end, whether you're pro NASCAR, pro teams, in the end, you didn't want to see the sport destroyed. Nobody wanted to see the sport destroyed. Let's see. Z17X Machine. I bet NASCAR hates Denny for bringing in Michael Jordan. You know what, though? I know NASCAR is not happy with Michael Jordan right now, but NASCAR being aligned with Michael Jordan being in the sport is very good for NASCAR. And by the way, I've heard many times. I remember watching in St. Louis last year. It was Steve O'Donnell, and they had this business seminar. Maybe it was Steve Phelps, actually. I think it was Steve Phelps. Let me just check. I'm pretty sure it was Steve Phelps. Yeah, it was Steve Phelps. So it was last year. It was in St. Louis. They had all the partners. They had all the sponsors and all that. And they were trying to basically grow NASCAR into new businesses. And obviously they're doing that with the schedule. And Steve Phelps was talking about how cool it was to have Michael Jordan in NASCAR. Steve Phelps was talking about just how awesome it was that somebody like Michael Jordan would be an owner in the sport. So they were championing Michael Jordan. They were bragging about Michael Jordan being a part of their sport. And obviously you don't like when Michael Jordan goes and sues you, but in the end, if we can settle, if we can get past all this, it's a good thing that somebody, even if you don't like Michael Jordan, even if you don't like what he did, if you don't like Denny Hamlin, if you don't like 2311 Racing, the fact that Michael Jordan, arguably the most famous athlete in the world, is a part of your sport is a very good thing for NASCAR. Let's go to the members here. David Bell, new member. How about that? We do have a members program. Thank you so much, David Bell, for becoming a YouTube member here on the channel. We love that. Let's see. Let's go back to the chat here. We're about 19 and a half minutes in. A lot of you guys weighing in. I appreciate that. Let's see how many people have watched on YouTube. We have 591 people watching live now. Let's see how interesting I've been, because that'll see how many people have left, though. You know, some people are kind of checking in and out. They're like, oh, I wanted Kenny. Oh, it's Charlie. I'm going to go get dinner. I'm going to go to bed. It's just Charlie. 2,473 of you have watched, so I really appreciate that. on the old YouTube. I will repost this on Kenny Wallace Media for the podcast as well. Remember, we have Kenny Wallace Media. That's in addition. Everything with Dirty Mo Media, that's Herman Schrader. That is Kenny Conversations. That is a different RSS podcast feed. We still have Kenny Wallace Media, where we do all the Kenny Conversations. Excuse me. We do all the Coffee with Kenny's. Kenny Conversations is on the Dirty Mo Media podcast with Herman Schrader. We do Coffee with Kenny, Kenny Wallace Show. I do my own live streams and put them on there. So we have a lot more content also on the podcast for Kenny Wallace Media. Okay, let's go back to the chat. Back to the chat. Jeff, that's not financially viable. He's replying to someone earlier. And I already forgot what it was about, not going to lie. Let's see. Pulsar Light says, isn't he like 4-0 in legal cases against the media at this point? LOL. We're not talking about Trump, but yeah, he's getting a lot of settlements. I guess that happens when you're the president also, and you can put a lot of pressure on the networks, especially if there's a big merger of local TV stations, which is going on right now between Tegna, Nexstar. I used to work for a Nexstar station, which is why I kind of have a little bit of inside info on that whole deal. That's kind of the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing. That was a part of that as well. But moving on, back to NASCAR. David Van Brunt says, NASCAR knows they're cooked. Why settle? Again, I think NASCAR knows they're in a vulnerable spot. I think that was obvious last week with those declarations from the owners. When that happened, I didn't see anybody that said, oh, NASCAR is now in a better spot. I think most people, me included, you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to realize that was NASCAR kind of saying, look, we're not in a great spot here. Let's potentially try to settle. That's what all the other owners said as well. All these owners that have a lot of skin in the game, Hendrick, Gibbs, Penske, all those owners signed declarations. None of them wanted to see a trial. None of them wanted to see their businesses devalued. None of them wanted to see NASCAR and all the teams and all the discovery dragged through the mud in a very public trial in December. Tom Morris says, if Jim Hubler leaves, I'm staying. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Rick and Shorty's Adventures. Get rid of the charters. Allow 50 cars or so to come and take a shot at qualifying for a 40-car field. Would you get 50, though? Probably not. Open it up and allow a smaller financial competitor to have a chance. I wonder if part of the settlement will be permanent charters. I don't think that was a coincidence that Richard Childress basically said, we think you got to have permanent charters for the financial long-term viability of this business. Kenny, I know, just busting chops. I know, we're having fun here. Pulsar Light says, when you go to court for anything, you usually lose and the lawyers always win. Definitely in divorces. I haven't been divorced, by the way, but I've heard that. I'm sure some of you have experienced that. Just saying. 50% of you probably, right? That's about the going rate. Just going to be saying that Logano needs to be suspended from Javier. Really? What did he do wrong? Just because you don't like Joey? Joey's clutch, baby. Paul Wolf is clutch. Can't be mad at him. Hey, he's just doing the format. He's just doing it better than most people the last 3-4 years. Actually, yeah, he's doing it better than anybody. Nobody's done the next-gen playoff format better than two-time champion Joey Logano, who has a chance. When I say two-time, I mean two-time in the next-gen car, obviously. 3-time champion overall, but now has a chance to get his 4th championship as he's advanced to the round of 8. Buddy Sumner says, NASCAR is afraid of all their dirt to come out. I hope Denny and Mike don't settle. I hope they take it to court. Oh, come on. I didn't see all the swear words, so I'm going to hide that. Let's be nice. Let's be nice. I should have proofread. I try not to put the swear words in there, okay? This is a bad look for the greedy NASCAR from Jeffy. Charles D. Hello, Charlie and all. I felt MJ had a reason. MJ's not dumb either, guys. Come on. NASCAR ain't dumb, but MJ ain't dumb. We're talking billionaires on both sides with deep, deep pockets. This was going to be a battle. It is a battle. It has been a battle. Let's see. Patrick Vininga says, giving teams 1 hour to review and sign deal I felt was brazen and stupid. Clearly, NASCAR felt 100% in control at that time. At that time, they probably did. Z17X Machine says, I wouldn't settle. I'd go all in if I was MJ. Cody Legger says, I'm fine with war at this point. Everyone forgets the teams were given 7 hours to sign a 200-page agreement. Clear union busting tactic. The sport's not in a great spot currently, and change is needed. All right. Robert Gilbert says, thanks for the update, Charlie. Great job. Thank you, Robert. Here we go. Rick and Shorty's Adventures. Them other teams probably going to be wishing they joined suit once this is all said and done. They all bow to NASCAR. Yeah, but all these teams are going to benefit. Let's be real. All these teams are going to benefit. You think just 2311 Racing and just Front Row Motorsports are going to benefit? No, all the teams are going to benefit if there's a settlement. If there's a settlement, or if it ends up going to court and the teams win, all the teams will benefit. Promise you that. We got Javier. Javier says, fastest 36 and the fastest ones on speed and owner points and champions provisional. Let's bring all of it back together. ZZ Top Fan says, evening all. How you doing? Stephen Carter. Fold like a cheap suit or everyone knows the game. Slow Burn 1 says, go all the way. Don't settle. If you're just joining us, we're adding viewers here, 612 watching live on YouTube, and I appreciate that. NASCAR is willing to settle this lawsuit, and I'll give all the credit in the world. Like I said, these reporters do a great job. So I want you guys to follow them, read their work. They're the ones that are grinding out all these reports. Adam Stern, this is about an hour ago. He tweets out NASCAR. This is Adam Stern, who covers NASCAR and motorsports for Sports Business Journal. He says, NASCAR has called for a settlement. Quote, following the hearing, one of 2311's owners stated, we've always been open to a settlement. Always have been. This is an area where the parties are actually in full agreement. NASCAR would also like to resolve this case prior to trial. End quote. Remember, the trial would happen December 1st. NASCAR would love to just finish this season and then do some mediation, whatever it is. Look, it's probably not going to be settled in the next 4 weeks, you would think. But if they just, hey, agree to do a mediation, we can kind of enjoy the playoffs. Maybe after the season gets going, they can figure this out. Or look, if there's still leverage and the teams are saying, no, we're gonna kind of press this and go to court. Well, what? And I don't think that's going to happen, by the way, but the season ends, early November. They'd still have a good 3-4 weeks before a trial to hammer out the details of a potential settlement. Adam Stern also tweeted, NASCAR in a new court filing tonight has called for an order, quote, directing the parties to participate in a judicial settlement conference to be convened by the court and appointing a judicial officer, such as the magistrate judge, to preside over the settlement conference. And then I'll go back to our guy, Bob Pockrass, because he had the name of the NBA guy. Bob Pockrass tweeting out, NASCAR has asked the court to order a settlement conference mediated by a magistrate judge. We just said that, or other judicial officer. 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports want to continue using Mediator, former NBA chief legal officer Jeffrey Mishkin, who already has presided over mediations and settlement talks in the case. That's from Bob Pockrass from Fox Sports. We know Bob does a great job covering NASCAR and all motorsports, IndyCar. And again, I talked with Bob a little bit, just a quick little minute conversation in St. Louis when I was at the race. And he was there covering it just about 3-4 weeks ago. Noah's Athletics says the other teams don't want to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. We got somebody going back to Bubba Wallace, going back to the whole incident in Talladega. We're trying to move on. At least I am, okay? This is a different topic here. Hit the like, y'all. Spread the word from John P. Appreciate that. Jared Gibbar says, owners and everyone wants this over with. Ain't that the truth? David Bell. Very, very interesting stuff. Hope you are doing well, Charlie. Thank you so much, David Bell. Hope you're doing well, too. And David Bell, I'll put you back up there because, boom, he just became a channel member. We have a members program. So, David Bell, thank you once again for being a channel member. There are so many comments. I don't even know if I can get to all these, honestly, because I wasn't going to go this long. But look, when you guys are involved, 604 of you watching live. I appreciate that. So we'll keep going strong here. We'll keep reading your comments because I appreciate it. Without this, the comments from you guys, without your subscriptions and watching the videos, we don't exist. So I really appreciate that. Jeffy says, I like you, Charlie. Well, thank you. I like you, Jeffy. Let's see. D Turner 40, big cup of coffee in the morning. He might even need a refill for Kenny Wallace tomorrow. I'm sure he's going to be talking about this. Does this include FRM? Yes. Yes. The lawsuit was a joint lawsuit between both 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR. But all these teams are going to benefit if there's a settlement, obviously. Pro teams, says Wild Bill. MP Kolov, I thought NASCAR was the bully in this. By the way, you notice when I'm reading these names, I have to go slow because sometimes you guys try to trick me with those names. Sometimes those names are inappropriate, right? And then I read them, I go, oh, or sometimes you guys try to slip in some shady words. It's happened before, okay? So I gotta read these. I gotta proofread them. Let's see. What else we got? We got Mike Carter says, NASCAR and the top race teams that side with NASCAR come from unlimited money, i.e. Penske and some, okay. We don't need that language. See, this is where I have to proofread these. This is what I'm talking about. You know, can't we use nice language here, folks? Okay. David Bell, Pro 2311 and Front Row Motorsports here. We got John P, Pro Teams, not NASCAR. Good on 2311 and Front Row Motorsports for standing up. Wayne Coyle says, the longer it goes on, the worse it is for all concerned in this. I agree. That's what I said earlier. I thought that this was a lose-lose situation for NASCAR. I thought that from day one. Even if NASCAR would have won and obliterated Michael Jordan, do you want Michael Jordan to leave the sport? Do you want to embarrass Michael Jordan? And I understand you're probably saying, hey, Michael Jordan's embarrassing us, but for the health of the sport and the league, I think if they end up settling, it's very good for all parties. Let's see. Pro team, slow burn 1. Yes. Maddie, VSS 24 says, this will probably be good for all parties except NASCAR. Well, I mean, financially, if they settle again, it looks like NASCAR wants to settle. They probably will, based on the reports, I would think. But even in the end, look, if NASCAR has to carve up a piece of their pie financially, it is what it is. I mean, when you look at the history of labor in sports, it usually favors the athletes. It usually favors the workers in the end. Like they usually end up getting more. So that's probably what we're going to see here. And again, so NASCAR, so what? The France family and the tracks make less money, but the teams are happier. The drivers are happier. And look, when the teams are happier, your sport is healthier. Also, if more teams want to join NASCAR and feel like it's very financially viable and great business to do so, that actually helps everyone, including NASCAR in the end, even if they have to cough up a bit of that pie. We got Red Cap, Blue Hat, pro teams that didn't bend the knee in fear. NASCAR needs to be forced to change for the better. BGB Gaming says all hell just broke loose. That's what Kenny said last week with those declarations. Aware of it. It's a money game. Poor RASCAR going to get their ass kicked. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, we're just seeing that it could be settled. That NASCAR is willing to settle. That's the news tonight. Z17X machine, more than the points system needs change. The car is a hunk of junk. A lot going on. We're talking about the lawsuit tonight. But yes, I've said this in the last couple of weeks. I mean, this is like a crazy time to be a fan of NASCAR. Everything is up in the air. Lawsuit. So the financial health of the sport with the lawsuit. We'll see if it gets settled. Playoff format. Is it going to be 3 to 4 races in a playoff? Is it going to be season-long points? Next-gen car. How do you fix that? Whether it's more horsepower, allowing the teams to tinker, you got to get the racing better. They've already hired marketing creative firms to try to get back the old school fans, the classic NASCAR fans. They've hired another creative firm out of LA to try to get younger fans. NASCAR knows they're in a spot where they got to grow this thing. And it's not all negative. It's not all negative. I think NASCAR is doing really good things with the schedule. And I think NASCAR being open to changing the playoffs is a good start. And I think NASCAR knows they have to fix things with the next gen car. And I think the fans have spoken, whether that's about the car or the playoffs, the ratings here in the playoffs. We'll see how it is with the Roval, but you're taking about a 20% ratings hit year over year. So you can't just blame that on NFL football, because it was compared to NFL football last year when they were competing against the NFL. Let's see. Charters suck. Keep out competitors like Junior. Well, hey, if the sport gets healthier for owners, don't you think Junior Motorsports is going to get in the Cup soon anyway? I mean, they obviously ran Justin Allgaier in that beautiful whiskey car. I should know. Traveler's whiskey, right? Chris Stapleton for the Daytona 500. Don't you think Dale and Kelly are going to be in Cup soon here? You'd think, what, with the team next 5 years or so? I would think. I have no inside information, but it seems like it's probably trending that way. And if this deal helps out the teams, that's more likely to happen if it's more viable from a business standpoint for Junior Motorsports. Let's see. Bill France said this 77 years ago. It's our league, and if you don't like it, go home. Well, times have changed. Times have changed. All right. Brandon Keene. Will all teams benefit? Yes. In the end, all the teams will benefit if there's a settlement. They're not just going to break off a nice deal for 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Although all those other owners who did sign, they better be sending some flowers and some cards and some candy, some chocolates to Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, because they had the balls to do this. Say what you want. If you don't like him, it takes balls to do that. Those other owners, they went and signed, even though if they probably didn't want to. But again, they have a lot of employees to be concerned with, and I totally get that. Tico says, pro teams and drivers, they either run like those greyhounds or horses and put out to pasture. Okay. I got to make sure I'm trying to proofread these first so I don't sneak through. We don't want to be disrespectful, folks. Okay. ZZ Top Fan. NASCAR has always ruled with an iron fist. They have consistently adjusted the rules to fit their personal feelings. Let's see. Brandon J says, AKA NASCAR knew it was going to lose this suit and didn't want the private stuff to become public in December. Right. Discovery can be very, very uncomfortable. A lot of things can be released, texts, emails that can make everybody look bad. Javier says, let's bring back the small teams. Robert Mathley, MJ is a winner. Don't F with MJ. I'm not going to put that up there just because of the swear word, which again, I like swearing. We're trying to monetize, baby. I'm just being honest with you guys, okay? This is YouTube's game. Like you said earlier, Bill France said NASCAR is our game. If you don't like it, go home. YouTube has their own game. Whether you like it or not, you got to play by YouTube's rules. I know they're not perfect, okay? It is what it is. Mike Carter. You guys, let's see. Michael Coates says, I'm not going to be using, you calling people crackers, okay? That offends me as a white person, okay? Michael Coates, unionize the drivers and team members, or you'll never get another chance. Let's see. I'm telling you, I have to read these now. Robert Gilbert, I'm glad MJ and Denny in Front Row have done what they have. Been interesting for sure. The sport needs a good overhaul. Let's see. The car is like a flying limousine. NASCAR's flying limousine service. Brandon J. Denny wins. We got Rick and Shorty's adventures. He says, there's no individuality within the sport anymore. No chance for an outside competitor to even attempt a chance at a race. NASCAR wasn't built on woke BS. You think NASCAR is still woke, though? I mean, now? I know you guys always want to talk about Bubba back in 2020. I mean, you think NASCAR is woke now still, 2025? And let's also acknowledge, I'm not saying it's right. Most companies, corporations, we all know that. They went too far that way. And we're starting, maybe it's too late. And maybe you're saying, hey, should have happened earlier. I get that. But we're seeing a course correction on the wokeness stuff. Isn't that pretty fair to say in the last year or so? If you disagree, I mean, where is NASCAR woke now? Again, If you have issues with them in the past, I get that. But in the last year or so, where do you think NASCAR is going too woke? I don't see that. I don't see that. Maybe you guys do. I feel they should stick together as much as they can. Talking about the teams. Let's see. Andy Kirkendall. NASCAR has forgotten where they came from. Moonshiners in a dirt field having fun. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. That's why I always say you can't listen. Now we're going off on tangents here. That's why I don't like the fuel saving at super speedways. Daytona. This is a sport based on being an outlaw, cheating up cars to run moonshine in the back roads, running from the popo. That's what NASCAR was built on. We're going to fuel save. We're going to go around whatever it is, 3/4 throttle for the Daytona 500. Come on now. Come on. That ain't NASCAR. That's not honoring those dudes that were running moonshine in the back roads of the Carolinas back in the day. Come on. You know I'm right on that. Geico Matt says, do it for Dale. Here we go. There's their sandbox and a big bully takes their sand bucket. LOL, Jeffy says. Z17X Machine says, remember when Tony Stewart said the car of tomorrow was a flying brick? Illuminati says, Dega. Let's see. Denver Thurston. Michael Jordan has been vindicated with this lawsuit. I see NASCAR now either giving up the tracks. Yeah, I mean, NASCAR's gonna have to budge financially. You would think. Again, this isn't 100%, but NASCAR being willing to settle. Clearly, they know they're not in a great spot. But now it's going to come down to the details. How much are they willing to budge? Because, look, when you say you're willing to settle, we know that the teams, 2311 front row now, have all the leverage in the world. They have all the leverage in the world. They know NASCAR does not want to go to trial. They know NASCAR knows they have a very good chance of not winning that trial. Kenny is pro team. David Van Brunt says, why settle if your case is strong? Well, I think you answered your own question there, David. I think NASCAR obviously doesn't think their case is nearly as strong as they thought it once was. Let's see. Tico. TV endorsements, track ownerships make huge money, but it doesn't trickle down to keep the sport alive. Yeah, and I said this earlier with the fact that all the owners seem to be in unison, even if they didn't all join this lawsuit, that they basically kind of just said they were tired of the negotiations. They thought, NASCAR wasn't going to budge. Another part of this is, name me another sport. And again, this is where I always thought the teams were probably going to come out on top. Name me another sport where the athletes, I should say, where the athletes make less money now in 2025 than they used to. You can't name. I know hockey had kind of an issue with one of their CBAs, but I mean, quarterbacks are making $60 million. Shohei Ohtani's making $70 million a year. I know a lot of that's deferred. NASCAR drivers are making less than they used to make, and that's odd. And look at some of their motorsports. Look at what F1 drivers are making. Does it make sense in 2025? Does it make sense that NASCAR drivers, the stars, they're the stars. NASCAR drivers are the stars of the sport. Does it make sense they're making less money than they used to? I know the sport's not as big as it was 20 years ago, but that's odd. Especially, look, you just signed a $7.7 billion TV deal for 7 years. Does not make sense to me that the drivers, the stars of the sport, are making less money than they used to. Let's see. We got Brandon J. I knew NASCAR was cooked when I was asked to get off the elevator going to the suites. And then Mike Helton and his security filled the elevator and went up alone. Okay. Remax, Lake Time Realty, says MJ knew the sport before he joined the sport. That's true. They just built this huge facility. What do they call it? What is it called? It's not Air Supply, the band. Somebody let me know. I'll look it up. What's 2311's building called? Air something. Not Air Supply. Airspeed. Airspeed. There you go. I'm sure one of you let me know. On the chat, man, I'm like 30 minutes behind on the chat. So, folks, I cannot get to all your comments. NASCAR is a monopoly, but thinks they may lose. They are being sued for monopolistic practices. So yeah, clearly if you're willing to settle, you think there's a very good chance that you could lose. Here we go. All right. I can't get to all of your comments. Somebody not like an MJ saying, bleep you, MJ. Okay. Let's see. Ted Neitzel says, funny that Herm said nobody wins against NASCAR. Crazy stuff. We'll see. We'll see. Remember, NASCAR willing to settle. Hasn't happened yet. We'll see what goes down. Should be very interesting. Hopefully they just let the playoffs just you got a month left. You got 4 races left. Let's keep the lawsuit out of the news. Let's just enjoy the playoffs and start mediating, start doing the mediation behind closed doors, but let's focus on the racing and the playoffs. I know some of you don't like the playoffs. I thought the finish of the Roval was awesome. I'm not saying the whole race was awesome, but the playoffs created some awesome moments at the end there, in my opinion. I know a lot of you guys disagree with me. All right, let's see. I'm going to go all the way down here. Who else we got? David Bell, new member. Yes, I'm going to show him again. David Bell, thank you again for being a member, buddy. Let's see. Let's go down here. I'm way behind on the chat. 517 of you guys watching live. I really appreciate that. Seriously, I wasn't going to go this long, but you guys have just really, really brought it strong. And like I said, I hate the fact that I can't read all your comments, but like there's freaking dozens, if not hundreds of comments here that I'm not able to get to. I got to put my kids to bed. My wife's probably mad at me right now. This dude's doing a freaking live stream talking about freaking NASCAR on a Monday night at 8:30, and I got to put my kids to bed. That lazy ass husband. 5,614 of you have watched on YouTube. I appreciate that. Again, 479 of you watching live, looking live. All right, I'll tell you what. It's 47:14. I'll go till 50. I'm going to go about 3 more minutes, okay? Again, I will not be able to read all your comments. If you guys want to get in the live streams, like I did a live stream earlier today, actually, where we're able to read everybody's comments. So you can join the next one. Let's see. Ryan Mraz. My solution to fix NASCAR. Go back to season-long points. No more stages. More horsepower and more diverse tracks where they only go to said track once. Puts more lore on tracks. More of a lure on tracks like Daytona. Let's see. David Bell, our guy, saying, never thought Chastain would hail Mellon at the Roval. We got Lee Page. I hope NASCAR realizes what they've got when they do the right thing instead of being thugs like they have been since the beginning. What else we got here? What else do we got here? Going backwards now. Here we go. We got Grizzly J. If NASCAR loses, I wouldn't be surprised to see the France family start selling off parts of it. Do you really want the Saudis owning NASCAR? Look how they have killed the WWE. You think NASCAR is going to sell to the Saudis? So is the WWE worse now? I don't really follow the WWE anymore. I'm 43 years old. Just kidding. I know a lot of you probably still like the WWE. Just a little fun there, but grow up, seriously. Just kidding, but seriously. Best fans ever. No, I get it. I used to like wrestling. Wrestling in the 90s was awesome. The Monday Night Wars, Nitro versus Raw. I was a big fan of, God, I can't remember the name of it. Not D-Generation X. What was the name of the WCW group? I had a shirt with, they had the Mexican guy. Olale, arriba la raza. What was that guy's name? What was the name of the group? See, now I can't even freaking remember it. You guys know. WCW group. Like the famous one with the shirts. What was it called? This is like the most obvious thing I can't think of. I can't even type because my stupid microphone. What was it called? Oh, yeah. New World Order. I'm an idiot. New World Order. But wasn't there like an offshoot? Was there New World Order with white shirts and New World Order with red shirts? Am I wrong on that? See, I don't know anything about wrestling. This is like 25, 30 years ago. I did see wrestling I saw wrestling like 2 or 3 times in person. In college in Peoria, I did. In Toledo, where I'm from, I did. I think I saw WWE once, and these are house shows. They weren't televised shows. And I saw WCW. I think I saw WCW in Toledo and WWE in Peoria. I'm pretty sure. Am I wrong on that? Okay. Yes. NWO. Yes, that's okay. Thank you. Walter Jackson. I'll put you up. I had serious brain fart right there. Wolfpack. That's who I liked. Too Sweet. Wolfpack. That was Conan, right? Arriba la raza. See, I can't remember anything. That's who I liked. I liked them so much that I totally forgot their name 25, 30 years ago. Yes, the Wolfpack had the red shirts. Okay, there we go. I think we need to end on that. Me losing my mind and forgetting about wrestling and all that, and the NWO Wolfpack and the New World Order. Okay, there we go. We'll end on that. We'll read one more because this is supposed to be about the lawsuit. The Real 99 says, damn, so I was right about the lawsuit after all. NASCAR willing to settle. There you go. We'll see what happens. Jeffrey King. What happens in the suit? Just seeing this. Is that a joke? NASCAR is willing to settle. Okay. Go to Adam Stern on X. He's got the info. NASCAR is willing to settle this lawsuit. Bing, bang, boom. There you go. David Bell says, take care, Charlie. Have a great week. Thank you so much. Jeffy says, good job, Charlie. Good night, dude. Great show from Maddie. I appreciate all of you guys. Love you all. Thank you so much. We're going to end the stream. 52 minutes in. NASCAR willing to settle. Peace out. Have a great night, everybody. Love you all. End stream.